Hey, it's Miss Taylor, and today we're going to talk about diction. Diction is not complicated at all, and a lot of times I feel that my students are kind of confusing themselves unnecessarily. Diction is just word choice. Diction allows us to understand what the author's purpose is behind something, what their tone is, and kind of how overall the meaning that they're trying to bring towards us is. And so diction is just word choice. To understand a little bit more about word choice, we have to understand connotation and denotation. Connotation is the associated meaning of a word, not the dictionary definition, whereas denotation is the dictionary definition. And so why is connotation important when we're thinking about diction? Connotation is important because understanding what the associated meaning of a word is going to allow us to understand more about the tone and then overall what the purpose of a poem or a piece of prose is. And so today we're going to talk about Love After Love by Derek Walcott as I walk you through a little bit about the diction and a little bit about what that tone is kind of giving off to then fully allow us understand what the purpose of the poem is, which is what our goal is always when we're thinking about analysis. So let's head over to my annotations and talk a little bit about Derek Walcott. So let's look at the poem Love After Love by Derek Walcott. So first, Derek Walcott was born in 1930 and he died in 2017. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1992. He's a pretty incredible poet. I really encourage you to go check out more of his poems, but this one in particular is my favorite. And so it's called Love After Love. Without reading the poem at all and without understanding a little bit more about that, when I'm thinking about love after love, I don't really understand exactly what that repetition of love means, but I'm definitely noting it in my head. And so let's read through it together. The time will come when with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here. Eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you. All your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life." All right, so before I look at any of the diction and before I think about analyzing with some annotation, I want to go back to the title and look at Love After Love. Now, my initial response to that is that the first love is a relationship. And the second love is self-love. So now let's look at some of the diction that's going on in this poem to try to help us figure out more about the tone and then a little bit of the overall meaning. So first, in this 2 lines in the beginning, the time will come when with elation. And so if you don't know what elation means, I encourage you to look it up. I think it's a really great way to also think about annotation is how you can just kind of look up the definition of a word. And so elation means with excitement. And so the speaker here also is using a comma. And so sometimes when we're trying to figure out what does the syntax mean within a poem, why is there punctuation, why is there not punctuation? The punctuation here, a comma in the middle of a line, is causing you to take a little bit of a pause and a think, right? And so what I mean by a think is that it wants you to pause and really think about the excitement that is going to happen when that time comes, right? And so that time will come when with elation. So already within the first 2 lines, I understand that this is going to be a bit of a positive poem, right? We're going to think about the excitement that's going to come from the love that you have for yourself after a relationship. And so it says, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door in your own mirror. So now I'm looking at the repetition of your own in your own mirror. And I think what that really is kind of symbolizing is how sometimes when you're in a relationship, you don't feel like you have ownership over your own things, maybe your own life. And so the repetition here is kind of allowing us to understand more about how the self-love is going to come from your inner self and how important it is to have that inner self-love. And then it says, and each will smile at the other's welcome. When it says each and other, what I'm looking at there is just how it is two different people. Sometimes after a relationship, it can feel like you are a whole new person. And so it's kind of comparing how you feel when you're in a relationship to how you feel after the relationship and how that can be two different people. So then we're looking at the smile as well. And so that is when we're looking at our diction again. The connotation of the word smile is of course positive. And so I know here that the positive connotation of smile tells me that this is a good thing, right? It's not a negative thing that this person is leaving this relationship and becoming a new person and being able to love themselves. It is a positive thing. Then it says in the next stanza, and say, sit here, eat. So again, we're looking at punctuation and eat here. This is the first period that we have seen. And so what's really important when you're thinking about why a period is being used both at the end of a line and mid-stanza is because it's even more than a pause than you would get from a comma. And so eat a lot of times is usually kind of like the act of eating and the act of sitting down and having dinner is the idea of communion, of bringing people together. And so when it says sit here and eat by yourself, the idea there that the speaker is trying to convey is just how important it is to give yourself time, right? To give yourself this idea of bringing yourself together into after a relationship. And so that eat here is that idea of communion. And again, if you don't know a little bit about literary devices or kind of you don't understand more about literary symbols, that concept of communion comes from references to religion where people will sit together and have a meal, and that allows them to kind of bring each other together. And so that reference is not at all really religious. It's more just a universal reference that's being seen here. And so now I want to look at the next line. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. And so I'm looking at the line stranger. Stranger usually has a very negative connotation to it, right? When I think stranger, I think stranger danger. And so the idea here on this negative connotation around stranger, when I'm thinking about word choice and thinking about diction, is that stranger here is showing just how negative it can be to become estranged from yourself in a negative relationship. And so you're going to love again the stranger who was yourself. And so that stranger is really emphasizing that that relationship was negative and it was harming someone. Then it says, give wine and give bread. That again is that reference to the religious idea of communion. And so when it's talking about religion, again, it's important to note that it's not about kind of religious undertones. It's not about the Bible. It's about this being a universal symbol of kind of caring for yourself and loving yourself, almost sacrificing yourself. And so it, again, is not really specifically tied to religion. It's more of just a universal kind of symbol. Because when you really think about it, what is the most read book in human history? It is technically the Bible. And so it's a reference that a lot of people understand, even if they aren't particularly religious. Next, we have give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you. And so what that means here, to the stranger who has loved you, it's that you have loved yourself in the past, but now you are a stranger to yourself. And so it's again emphasizing more of just that concept of becoming a different and almost kind of having an out-of-body experience when you're in a negative relationship. And so, how do I know that it's a negative relationship? That's when I'm starting to look at the diction of the last two stanzas. And so, what I'm looking for is words that have negative connotation again. And so, when it says all your life whom you ignored, that's again a negative connotation. And then also here, take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Desperate is really important here. This is a super negative word, right? Desperate notes, almost that you are kind of clawing onto this relationship, clawing onto this negativity, clawing onto the danger that's coming through that. And so that again is telling me that this probably was not a positive relationship by any means. And then lastly is the peel your own image from the mirror. When I'm thinking of the idea of peeling, right, that doesn't feel very positive to me. And when you're kind of peeling yourself up from something, almost like you're squished, right? When I think of peel, I think of a squished banana on the street, right? And how you have to peel that up, and it's kind of difficult to peel that up. And so when we're looking at diction, and we're looking at what does the word peel mean? What's the connotation of the word peel? It's whatever you are seeing as that kind of like connection that you're making. And peel is usually seen as negative. And then lastly, sit, feast on your life. And so again, it's referencing that food. It's referencing kind of that rest that's going to come from that as well. So overall, when you're looking at a poem and you're thinking about diction, what I want you to focus on is what the connotation of the words is. Is it a negative connotation? Is it a positive connotation? And how can that allow me to understand more about the tone? And so I would say that the tone of this poem is kind of self-reflection. It's very positive in light of a negative situation that has happened. And I see that from the elation. I see that from smile. I see that from love. But I also see the negative sides of that, of the stranger, of the ignoring, of the desperate. And I can see that the speaker is trying to show us more about the negative side effects of being in a bad relationship, and ultimately how you can still kind of come back from that and the positives around that. And I get that from diction. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful in understanding a little bit more about diction and also a little bit more about Love After Love by Derek Walcott. If you want, you should check out Mod School's videos for more online learning in the offline world, where we do passion projects and teach students all about how to use real-world skills in their learning journey. Thanks so much.